1.7 billion euros of defense capital in a single month. A drone company worth 3.5 billion, founded only 2 years ago. The largest European defense IPO in history. A rocket company that raised 270 million and still cannot reach orbit. And a laser fusion startup from Darmstadt that just closed the largest Series A the global fusion industry has ever seen, turning it into a unicorn. This is the defense capital supercycle, and we're going to break it down for you. This is Startuprad.io. I'm Jörn Menninger, joining you from Frankfurt am Main. This is the June 2026 Startup News episode covering everything that was going on in the German, Swiss and Austrian startup scene, collectively known as DACH or GSA, between May 19th and June 29th. Production date is today, June 29th. We are going live on July 2nd. All news not included will be published in our summer wrap-ups. We expect this time 2 episodes to drop September 3rd and 7th, the US Labor Day, as is our tradition. This admittedly is the first solo news episode. For those who have listened for a while, you will notice that I'm on my own. Chris Farnbach, my co-host and co-founder, has left the show. I want to keep this brief. Chris built the show with me from the very beginning, and his contribution is in every single episode we have ever made. But the show continues, and the signals this month demand our full attention. He, by the way, stays on as an advisor, and of course our reliable back office team also remains unchanged. The signals this month are extraordinary. In a single month, DACH produced more than 1.7 billion euros of defense-linked capital, 500 million for Stark's drones, 270 million for ESA's rockets, 500 million for a new European Defense Growth Fund, and the largest European defense IPO in history, KNDS, up to 18 billion euros. Beyond Defense, Focused Energy raised $270 million for laser fusion in the largest Series A the global fusion industry has ever seen. A new German unicorn from Darmstadt, backed by RWE, a German utility, and the German government. Defense technology is no longer a sector within European venture capital. It is right now the dominant category. I'm calling this the defense capital supercycle. But there is the structural tension. ESA Aerospace raised 270 million euros on June 9th. 6 days later, on June 15th, unfortunately, their rocket launch was scrubbed. The money moved faster than the rocket. That is kind of the story of this month. The capital infrastructure for European defense tech is complete. The question is whether the engineering can match. Let's look a little bit into the macro numbers. Germany has deployed 4.04 billion US dollars. Sorry for the confusion in the currencies, but that's the way it is here in Europe. 188 rounds tracked through June. Through Traction report, a 20.7% drop year on year from 2025. That's actually a reversal from the 11.6% growth we reported through May. Note, there will always be conflicting numbers from different data providers, but you'll notice the trend. The defense budget of Germany stands at 82.6 billion euros, projected to almost double to 152 billion by 2029. Also, the acquisitions have hit 177 through June, and Germany has produced 4 new unicorns in 2026 already. There's Sapiens, there's the already discussed Stark, there is Focused Energy we'll talk about, and our former guest Finn, Well, we'll spend a little bit on the end. We have 3 predictions on record for this month. Number 1, stock reaches a 10 billion euro valuation within 18 months. 2, the KNDS IPO prices above 15 billion and triggers at least 1 more European defense listing within 12 months. Prediction number 3, ESA Aerospace reaches orbit before December 31st this year. Let's talk startups. As already mentioned, Stark, this is our story number 1, founding to 3.5 billion in about 2 years. Stark, Berlin-based, founded 2024. On June 23rd, Stark raised 500 million euros in a Series C, co-led by Sequoia Capital and Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, the NATO Innovation Fund, Döpfner Capital, Project A, and Air Street Capital came alongside. The valuation sits above 3.5 billion. Let me put that in context. Stark is approximately 2 years old. 2 years from founding to 3.5 billion euro valuation. Total raised since founding roughly 640 million euros. That is the fastest trajectory in DACH startup history. It kind of tickles memories for me of quick delivery, but this time they're pushed by macroeconomic and political forces. They're making this market fast and large due to demand across Europe, especially from the governments. The product is the Virtuous Loitering Munition, a strike drone with more than 130 kilometers of range and up to 90 minutes of flight, operating in a GPS-denied environment, meaning GPS signals are blocked. In February 2026, Stark won a 269 million euro Bundeswehr contract to equip the German armored brigade stationed in Lithuania. More than 80% of the new capital goes to research, development, and of course manufacturing. The target, thousands of systems every month. This is actually Sequoia's first lead investment in a German defense startup. When the largest venture firm in the world leads a German drone company's round, with Peter Thiel Fund co-leading, the signal is actually unambiguous. US growth capital is all in on European sovereign defense. And the structural point from our previous episode holds. The Bundeswehr contract came first. We talked about this. The venture capital followed the budget line. The sovereign customer premium was named in May and is compounding. News number 2, KNDS, Europe's largest defense IPO. On June 22nd, KNDS, the Franco-German tank and ammunition manufacturer, announced it will proceed with an IPO on the Paris and Frankfurt stock exchanges. Estimated valuations are between 15 and 18 billion euros. Germany is buying a 40% stake. France retains their 40% stake. About 20% goes to institutional investors. This is the largest European defense IPO in history. KNDS makes the Leopard 2 tanks, ammunitions used in Ukraine, and military vehicles for NATO allies. The listing is expected within weeks. Mid-July is the target. 2 things that matter here. That's why the IPO is in our startup news. First, the dual Paris-Frankfurt listing reinforces a trend we have been tracking. Frankfurt is becoming a default venue for European defense and industrial listings. KNDS choose Frankfurt. Bitpanda also choose Frankfurt. The IPO geography continues to shift away from London and New York. Second, Germany buying 40% of KNDS is not just a financial transaction. It is sovereign industrial policy. The German state is taking a direct ownership stake in a core defense manufacturer. This is the government side of the defense capital Supercycle. Public procurement creates the demand. Sovereign ownership secures the supply chain, and public markets do provide the exit. Our third news, the European defense capital stack. On June 18th, Early Bird Venture Capital and French investor AVP announced E2D. This is a 500 million euro growth fund for European defense and dual-use technology. About 20 companies, 25 million euro average tickets. Space, air, land, maritime. First close, June 30th. Here is why ED2 matters beyond just the headlines. It completes what I am calling the European defense capital stack. At the bottom, you have early stage funds that back defense startups at seed and Series A. In the middle, you now have E2D, a dedicated growth fund from around Series B and C stage. At the top, you have the late stage mega rounds, Helsing at 1.2 billion, Stark at 500 million. And now, for the first time, you have also public market exits, KNDS. 12 months ago, this stack did not exist. The complaint from European defense founders was always the same. We can get the seed money, but there's no growth capital and there's no exit. As of this month, all three layers are in place. The capital infrastructure is complete. Let us press our thumbs, like we do in Germany, that other complete capital stacks will develop pretty soon in the future. And there is a Franco-German signal buried in all of that. E2D is Early Bird, German, and AVP, French. KNDS, Franco-German. The defense capital Supercycle is structurally Franco-German, not just German. This matters for founders if you're building in defense or dual use. The capital path now runs through both Paris and Berlin, two of Europe's largest economies and G7 governments. The combined GDP, just to give you a house number, is almost 8 times that of Switzerland, which by itself is not a poor country. Our news number 4, the orbit question returns. Yes, pun intended. On June 9th, ESA Aerospace closed a 270 million euros Series D, like Dora, round. New investors, Iceland Green Capital and Molten Ventures. Existing investors, HV Capital, Lakestar, UVC Partners, KfW Capital, and the NATO Innovation Fund, the same fund that appears in Stark's round. Total raised approximately 800 million euros, including a 150 million euro convertible bond from 2025. 6 days later, on June 15th, the launch was scrubbed. A propulsion anomaly. A second window on June 19th also passed without launch. The mission, Onward and Upward, is now rescheduled to July 31st. Let me be direct about this. No rocket has completed an orbital insertion from the European continent. ESA has raised 800 million euros and has not yet reached orbit. The first flight, March 2025, failed. The March 2026 attempt was scrubbed twice. Now, June 2026, scrubbed twice. Each time, the funding comes through regardless. The market is pricing sovereign launch capabilities as strategically essential, independent of near-term mission outcomes. That is the defense capital supercycle in its most concentrated form. The capital thesis is that Europe must have sovereign launch capability. The capital is available. The physics is not cooperating. My prediction, ESA reaches orbit before December 31st this year. If it does not, the conversations will shift from patience to alternatives. Our news number 5, focused energy, sovereign capital beyond defense. One more signal before we start our lightning round, and it's actually a big one. On May 27th, Darmstadt-based Focused Energy raised $240 million in a Series A. Yes, that's a large Series A. That's actually the largest fully secured Series A in the global fusion industry. Focused Energy is now Europe's most valuable fusion company and a newly coined German unicorn. The company was only founded in 2021 as a spin-out of TU Darmstadt Technical University and the Laser and Plasma Physics Group led by Professor Markus Roth. Focus Energy pursues laser fusion, inertial confinement, which is the only approach where net energy gain has been scientifically demonstrated at the National Ignition Facility in California. The investors here tell you everything. RWE, Germany's largest utility, as a strategic partner. Sprint, we talked about them in the past, the German Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation, the European Innovation Council Fund, and Prime Movers Lab from the US as the existing lead. The money is very interesting because it goes to B+. If that name sounds familiar, it should. B+ was the site of one of Germany's largest nuclear power plants decommissioned after the Fukushima disaster. RWE owns the site and brings the grid connection, the nuclear licensing expertise, and the physical infrastructure. Focused Energy is building the world's first laser fusion power plant there, targeting mid-2030s. Here's why this matters for our thesis. The pattern is identical to what we see in defense. Sprint is sovereign capital, the government betting on a moonshot. RWE is the institutional anchor and the industrial partner with the infrastructure. The EIC fund is European strategic capital. The structure is the same as DACH. Sovereign customer, sovereign capital, deep tech execution. The difference is the domain. In defense, it is drones and satellites. In energy, it is now fusion, but the capital logic is the same. The sovereign capital pattern is not limited simply to defense. It extends now to every domain where Europe has decided it needs strategic autonomy. Our lightning round. Orbem, Munich, 55.5 million euros in Series B. They are an AI-powered MRI technology for the food industry with a healthcare expansions planned, led by innovative industries and supernova investments with General Catalyst following on. A TUM, Technical University Munich, spin-out. Munich's deep tech pipeline keeps producing. Prem AI, Switzerland. They raised $100 million in a Series A at a $500 million valuation. The company helps hedge funds, law firms, and enterprises run AI models on private infrastructure. This is the AI sovereignty thesis applied to enterprise. Keep the models on your own servers, not US cloud. VARM, spelled V-A-R-M, all in capital letters, from Berlin, 70.5 million euros. Trains and deploys. Insulation specialists for building decarbonization. Climate tech meets workforce development. Capital paired with physical trades capacity. Blackline from Berlin. Uber confirmed acquisition announced on March 30th this year. Last valued at $547 million. Premium chauffeurs in 500 plus cities. Regulatory approval is still pending, but expected to close by year's end. Finn, our former guest from Munich, 140 million euro Series D Lectora led by Portage. Valuation above 1 billion euros. Unicorn status. New unicorn. We interviewed the Finn team before this round closed. The episode is on Startuprad.io. We'll link it here in our blog post. Finn is Germany's leading car subscription platform with more than 50,000 active subscription and over 300 million euros in annualized revenue. That makes Finn Germany's fourth new unicorn of 2026 after Sapiens, Stock, and focused energy for new unicorns in 6 months. When was the last time that happened? Oh, Sapiens in Mannheim, $100 million Series C from decarbonization partners, the BlackRock and Temasek joint venture. Germany's first unicorn of 2026, now valued above 1 billion. They are enterprise compliance and sustainability software. No surprise here, Mannheim has more centers for entrepreneurship and startup founders than almost all of the state of Hesse. We have been there in the past and seen almost all of the 9 at the time. 3 quick regulatory and people signals from the weekend. N26, Berlin's largest neobank, reported its first ever profit, a real milestone. Binance is shutting down cryptocurrency trading across the entire European Economic Area under MiCA enforcement. That clears the field for MiCA-compliant operators like Bitpanda. And Judith Data, general partner at Visionaries Club and leading voice on European AI sovereignty, has become CEO of Langdoc, a Berlin-based enterprise AI company, a venture GP moving into operating CEO role. That's real conviction. Our operator and investor takeaways of this news. If I were a founder right now, I would look at the European defense capital stack and ask where my company fits. The infrastructure exists end-to-end. Early stage funds at the bottom, E2D for growth, Helsing and stock proving the late stage models, KNDS opening a public market exit. If your technology has a defense or dual use application, the capital path is clearer than it has ever been. But the ESA lesson also applies. Raising the money is the easy part. Engineering execution is the binding constraint. Do not confuse a funded round with a delivered product. If I were an investor, I would watch the capital concentration pattern. Total funding in Germany is down 20% year over year, but the individual rounds are historic. Stock at 500 million, ESA 240 million, E2D 500 million. The money is flowing into fewer companies at larger scale and of course also including funds. If you are not in defense, space, industrial AI, or regulated infrastructure, the funding environment is tighter than the headlines suggest. The structural rotation we identified in April is not a trend. It's a new baseline. What I watch next. 3 things to watch here. First, ESA Aerospace launch window opens again on July 31st. Orbit validates the decade of European commercial launch investments. Another scrub raises existential questions. Second thing to watch, KNDS IPO pricing expected mid of July. The range is 15 to 18 billions in total. Where prices tells you how public market investors calibrate European defense risk. Third thing to watch, Bitpanda's IPO timeline. The MiCA deadline of June 30th has effectively passed at the time of publication. Whether Bitpanda files for Q3 determines whether Frankfurt's tech listing ambitions are a trend or simply an aspiration. Let me close with a big picture here. 3 predictions on record. 1, stock reaches 10 billion within 18 months. 2, KNDS prices above 15 billion and triggers at least 1 more European defense listing within a year. 3, ESA Aerospace reaches orbit before December 31st. Sometimes we're a little bit critical, but keep in mind we always cheer on the startup founders. We ourselves know how hard the business can be. In March, we said procurement is the new product market fit. In April, we said DACH capital has rotated from software to physical infrastructure. In May, we named the sovereign customer premium. This month, all 3 themes converge. The capital infrastructure for European defense technology is complete. Seed to growth to public markets. The European defense capital stack exists, and the question has shifted from whether the money will arrive to whether the engineering can deliver. For the schedule, the next news episode covers late June through late July and August. We are on bi-weekly publication for July and August. In September, we return with a summer wrap-up, H2 2026 review to be published soon. It's an interesting time. The money arrived. Now the building starts. This is Joe for Startuprad.io.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.